Hey fellow nerds, do you know what happened in between the fall of Mauryan Empire and the rise of the Gupta Empire? Do you? I am the viewer stand-in, I know nothing about anything. That's what I expected. We gloss over 600 years of our history like it's nothing in our history textbooks. So, what on earth happened then? Well, quite a lot actually. It's marked by three separate conflicts. The first one begins with, on the orange corner, we have the bulky, mean empire that took over the Magad Empire after the fall of the Mauryan Empire. And on the purple corner, we have the saviors of Buddhism and the result of whatever happens after Alexander the Great leaves people behind in the Indo-Greek Kingdoms. Wait, Indo-Greek Kingdoms? Oh, you are in for a wild ride. The Shunga dynasty was ruled by Brahmins, and because of that, they made the Mauryan Empire or the Magad Empire do a complete 180 in its religious ways, from Buddhism to Hinduism, from fostering Buddhism to persecuting Buddhism. And it began with the Ashwamedha Yagya, which happens when a new emperor sends out a white horse in every direction, and in whatever direction it goes to becomes their land to conquer. Doing this, they conquered all the way to river Narmada and Sialkot in Punjab, and because of this, they would come in conflict with the Indo-Greek Kingdoms or the Yavanas a lot of the times. Shunga dynasty would hold power in the Mughal Empire for 100 years, and in that time it would cycle through 10 emperors, out of which the first emperor, Pushyamitra Shunga, would hold power for 36 years. So you can imagine the shit show that followed. Art would flourish during this time. Color would enter the lives of many. The Buddhist stupas left behind by Ashoka would be redecorated in color in Hindu style by Shungas. The Shunga dynasty decentralized its power over time. It would be divided into smaller, manageable chunks or janpads, and each janpad would have its own local ruler. This meant that when there was inevitably chaos in Patliputra, it would not affect the rest of the empire. They started a period of religious persecutions by reclaiming many of the Buddhist stupas and destroying their monasteries and killing many Buddhists. They would eventually be overthrown by Kanva dynasty, and Kanva dynasty would shrink the Magad Empire down to the level of their Mahajanpad era size. They wouldn't rule for too long, and they would die out quickly to be assassinated by Balipuja of the Andhra dynasty or the Satvahanas. And so that was the fate of the Magad Empire, one of the most significant kingdoms of early India. It lasted nearly 500 years as one of the largest empires. That's not a small feat. Yeah, I know. Get to the Indo-Greek Kingdoms. What's up with them? During the Mauryan period, the Greeks that lived in India had turned Buddhists. Yeah, I know. And because of that, they brought their art of sculpture making and gave Buddha a face and a body for the first time. Their culture was a unique blend of Indian and Greek. They would use the Greek architecture and the Greek art of sculpture to depict Hindu and Buddhist legends. One of its major kings was Menander I. He drove off invasions from Bactria and then turned around to conquer inland into India all the way until Patliputra to try and stop religious persecution that was happening under Shunga dynasty's reign. His dynasty was overthrown soon afterwards as it was unable to keep its gains. After that point, the Indo-Greek Kingdoms would become very fragmented with no overarching ruler. Around 80 BC, the Scythians or the Central Asians attacked them. They had to ally with Hindu kings from eastern Punjab to drive them away. However, despite that, within 70 years, they would fall to the Scythians anyway. Outside of Meninder, they were unable to form any major empires, and politically, they had very little influence. But culturally and through art, they changed how India did things. From architecture to sculptures, from religion to society. Wait, you said religion. How did it change religion? And on the orange side, with the support of Shunga dynasty, we have Hinduism or Vedism or Brahmanism, whatever you prefer. And on the purple side, we have Buddhism, championed by the Indo-Greek Kingdoms. The Hindu society was stratified into 4 castes, and they were made the state policy. This period was marked by 4 major Hindu texts being composed around this time. The last 2 major Upanishads, Mahabharata, or in specific Bhagavad Gita, and Manusmriti. The last 2 Upanishads outlined the Vedanta philosophy of the Vedas, which helped many Buddhist scholars take up Hindu beliefs, while the Bhagavad Gita was pivotal in making the commoners as well as soldiers switch to being Hindus, as the Bhagavad Gita helped simplify the complex philosophies of Vedanta. But at the same time, it marked the rise of many social evils of Hinduism we see today. If you want to take a look at most of Indian society in its eastern half and how it organized itself, you have to look at Manusmriti. It limits the role of women to a domestic duty, and it advocates for a brutal stratification of the society, which is a very far cry from what early Upanishads stated. On one side, in Mahabharata, we see a great criticism of the minimization of women's roles, and to a more subtler degree, a criticization of caste system. And on the other end, Manusmriti mandated all these things and more. On one end, the many Hindu sages were convincing people through ideological victories, and on the other end, Hindu kings were brutally persecuting anyone who had a different faith from them. Some of the finest philosophies of Hinduism would take shape during this time, and so would some of its ugliest practices. Buddhism will have their last hurrah during this time, under the Indo-Greek Kingdoms. But the end of Buddhism as a major religion in India ever drew closer. This would be the second last time they would battle with Hinduism, before Gupta Empire and the advent of Purans would completely crush them. But despite that, this is the time that would see the statue depiction of Buddha for the first time, as well as some of the most famous Buddhist art pieces would take shape during this time. While Buddhism had a very good 400-year run by this point, winning almost every battle that it came across, it would lose this one, and it would lose every battle from this point on. As the Indo-Greek kingdoms fell in the west, so did the last purely Buddhist kingdoms. It would survive for a millennia afterward as Buddhism in India, but this would be the last time it would be seen as state religion. That was it for round 1 of classical Indian fights. In the next video, we'll explore the round 2 of this battle, in between the local Satvahanas dynasty and the foreign Indo-saka people. Wait a minute, what the hell are the Sakas now? They are Scythians who, you know what? To learn more about them, watch the next video. See you next time.